Hello, I'm Helen. I'm a freelance illustrator. I create live portraits and host creative workshops and retreats. It was just kind of being a bit brazen about it and just putting myself out there, sending pitch emails, following up over and over, just making the most of a contact once I had it. I think I had this idea that when you reach out to a client you'd want to work with, they can be super scary. Most of the time, people are so lovely. Don't assume that people are super scary or on this sort of massive pedestal above you. We're all human beings.
Yes, their story coming up in a moment. I'm Steve Folland. Welcome to another one. This episode is supported by and recorded using Riverside. If you're after high quality audio and video for your podcasts, for your client testimonials, for your live streaming, for your webinars, I really recommend checking it out. Not just for creating it in the first place, but for them repurposing it using their very clever AI editors, their inbuilt transcription tools. It's a time saver when you're doing everything yourself. So go to beingfreelance.com/Riverside to see it for yourself, see how it could work for you. It's free to get started, but if you want to get a paid plan, do use the code beingfreelance because that'll save you 15%.
I think in any business, it's that thing where you have to step back and go, actually, where is the majority of my revenue coming from? I might enjoy that slightly niche thing that I've been doing, but is it actually making me very much money? And if it isn't, why am I spending so much time on it?
Yes, there's Helen, another episode to add to the back catalogue of over 300 freelancers from around the world sharing their stories. If you've not checked them out, I know that sounds like a lot. That's a significant to-do list if this is literally your first one, for example. But honestly, it doesn't matter what they do for a living. It's all about the being freelance. So do take a look back through all of the years of this podcast. 10 years of episodes there for you to see and to listen to. And if you want to get a bit closer into the world of being freelance and what I do, my name's Steve Folland. I'm a freelance video and podcast editor and creator. Then go to beingfreelance.com. You can sign up for the emails where I send out stuff to help your business, stories from the podcast, stories from my own business, community updates. It's all in there. Sign up at beingfreelance.com. Right now, should we crack on and chat to this week's guest? And that is freelance illustrator Helen Ridley. As ever, how about we get started hearing how you got started being freelance?
Well, I think it makes sense to go back to the beginning where I started out. I did my degree in fashion design quite a few years ago, to say the least. Yeah, so I did a degree in fashion design, loved creating fashion illustration and loved that side of the industry. But I just didn't have a clue what to do once I graduated. As is the case with a lot of creative degrees, you don't often get much support on how to become a freelancer, which I didn't even know was an option when I graduated. I thought I had to work for someone else. I didn't know I could work as an illustrator freelance. So although I loved illustration and I loved doing it as a hobby, I never quite got the hang of it straight out of uni. So I ended up working in a completely different industry for a while and worked in retail. It started out as temp jobs and then became my main job for more than 10 years. I was actually a quality assurance technician. So I would be working with buyers and merchandisers, developing new products, making sure they were safe, getting them tested. It was kind of fun. I'd get to visit factories across the world and see how the products are being made, improve their quality procedures and their testing, build relationships with suppliers and agents. But it wasn't particularly creative. And after a few years, I realized, regardless of the fact it was paying well, I needed to get out and be creative again. So in 2020, as with a lot of people, I had time to get back to my creativity and I started building an illustration portfolio. I think the year previous, I had taken a short course in illustration, which got me much more excited about it and helped me understand how I could make money as an illustrator. And then during lockdown, I did an online course as well and built up my portfolio. And by the end of 2020, I decided to take redundancy from the job I was in at the time and went straight into full-time freelance for a year, which actually I would not recommend, having never done it before and in the middle of lockdown still. So it was an interesting year. I was kind of living on my savings for a year because I was finding my way, figuring it out, setting up a business from scratch. And actually, I started out as an illustrator for illustrated products and gifts and decorations. So I was making cards and party decorations that were illustrated by me. I was selling them online, and then as things started to open up, I was selling them in markets. But ultimately, it really wasn't making me a lot of money on its own. I think if you want to go into that part of the industry, it needs to be one of the things you do, or you just go full on into wholesale with that side of the business. But I didn't have the time or energy for that. And for the amount of time it was taking me to design everything, develop everything, and then try and sell it as well, it wasn't a very good return. So that was 4 years ago. So 2 years in, I decided to completely flip my business, pivot, as they say, and I decided to go into live illustration at live events and weddings. And it took me about a year to kind of prepare. So I started doing it at small local events, at art fairs and things like that. And got a really lovely response from people. So then I started going to wedding fairs and speaking to couples and getting a few bookings for weddings. So the first year I was mainly doing live illustration at weddings. And in the last year, I've been doing lots of weddings, but also live pet portraits. And I've had an amazing partnership with John Lewis in the last year, where I've done pet portraits in about 14 or 15 stores throughout the year. Wow. Drawing pets live. So I'm not asking, it's dogs, and I'm not asking them to sit still for 10 minutes because it takes me that long to do a portrait. I take a quick photo, they go off and have a browse in the shop, and I come back and collect their portrait. But yeah, so that's kind of become it's almost half of my business at the moment, which is a bit crazy. And then alongside that, I also teach creative workshops and host a calligraphy and watercolor retreat with a friend who's a calligrapher.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot to unpick here. First of all, though, I love the fact that, you know, you weren't feeling creative and you made this change and it's worked out. I love that. So that first couple of years was mainly you rather than getting clients, for example, it was you creating your own products and trying to sell them, but realizing that really it just wasn't going to work out financially. Would that be right? Or were you getting commissions?
I was getting commissions for pet portraits in the traditional way where people send you photos, you do them in your studio. So I was doing a few commissions like that, sort of personal ones, not with branding clients. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I was pitching to do editorial work. I was building my portfolio for publishing work, but I think it was a confidence thing. I was putting myself out there, but not always getting much of a response, or just not putting myself out there enough in hindsight. I think I really needed to amp that up a lot more. And it took me quite a while to build up the confidence to realize what I could do as an illustrator and what I was capable of. But I think also I realized perhaps my heart just wasn't in it enough to pursue those parts of illustration. And actually, when I started live illustration, I was like, this is what I love. This is what I'm enjoying. And I just can't stop talking about it. And because I love drawing fast, some illustrators, you know, want to take time over their pieces and go into tons of detail, which is amazing. And I just don't have the patience for that usually. I like drawing fast. And so turns out there's a job where you get paid to draw really fast. And it's really fun because that was the other thing, setting up a business in lockdown, you just don't see many people in real life. And I missed that. So live illustration and hosting workshops means you meet people all the time and it's really sociable. And so that's the bit I was missing and wanted to get back to.
Okay, so we have to address what I'm sure lots of people are thinking is, how do you go from, you know, sitting in your house thinking, I like the idea of doing live events, to actually doing them, and then ultimately doing them for John Lewis, which for those listening around the world is like the biggest department store and a very, very high-end one. Like, it's accessible to everyone. It's not like Harrods or whatever, but it's a classy affair, I think it's fair to say. Yeah, take us through that. I guess that first step. How did you go about taking the idea, I fancy doing live drawing, to making it a reality? And then, even if that's further through the story, how did you end up with that kind of deal going on?
I guess to start with, I did lots of research. So I looked at other live illustrators out there, what their style was, as in, how could I simplify my drawings to be stylized enough to do them quickly? I didn't want to copy someone else's style. So I had a look at what they were doing, what packages they offered, what does a live illustrator do, to kind of get my head around that. And it varies a lot. Some of them do live ceremony paintings and sort of will do a live painting in a full day. And then they'll also do guest portraits. But I realized the thing I enjoy the most is the guest portraits of people. So I'll do portraits of individuals or couples on the day there and then, and they take them away as gifts, as wedding favors usually. So I did my research on other illustrators. I figured out how much I should be charging. I realized the wedding part of the industry is perhaps a slightly easier part to get into rather than going straight into working with brands. So that led me to sort of going to wedding fairs and finding clients that way, and updating my website, and marketing myself as a live illustrator. But it was also, I had to time myself to know I could create a portrait in 10 minutes. So it was lots and lots of practice. So as I said, it took me about a year to get to the point where I did my first proper event, from practicing it, doing a few local events, like local markets and art fairs, and then and building up my packages, updating my website, getting some professional photography really helped as well, and having lots of examples of what I did, putting together price lists and packages that I could send to clients when they inquired. I added myself onto things like Hitched, which is a wedding supplier website. It was kind of a gradual process. It sounds like an overnight thing, but it really did take quite a lot of time to prepare and plan for. But that was the thing, like I had to know I was doing it right and feel professional. But there's also just an element of being like, just saying I can do it and doing it and figuring it out. And I think that's with a lot of things where you want to try something brand new, you've just got to be a bit brazen about it and just say you can do it anyway and hope someone will trust you. And luckily, the first few couples that booked me did, and they loved it. And then I started getting reviews and feedback, and that was helpful as well to promote what I was doing. Yeah, so starting with weddings for me was the easiest way in. And then when it came to working with brands, I adopted a dog a year and a half ago, and I love dogs and I love working with them. So I had the idea at the beginning of last year to start pitching to work with dog-friendly brands. And actually, John Lewis was one where I got chatting to the events coordinator in my local John Lewis, and I did live people portraits on International Women's Day just over a year ago. And kept in contact with her. That was after following up with her for about a year or 9 months of sending her emails and saying, hi, I'm still free, I'm still available, I'd love to work with you. And eventually she booked me for that event. Off the back of that, I then got in contact with the person I found on LinkedIn who does all live events at John Lewis, who's like the head of live events. And that person was amazing, responded straight away, which I was not expecting, saying, love what you do, but actually, could you do dogs? And I was like, actually, yes. I had at the time just done a live dog event, it was called Dog's Day Out in Hampshire. And so I was doing live portraits. People were paying me individually. I wasn't booked by the brand to be there. It was a bit of a trial, but it was so popular, really fun. I had so many brilliant pictures from it. I did really well from that. So I turned that into a blog post. So I sent John Lewis a link to that blog post. And they were like, yeah, that's perfect. Can we book you for 5 dates in the summer? Because they wanted to trial it to kind of get people to come into store in the summer when it's a bit quieter. So they booked me for 5 different stores summer last year. Again, it was really popular, particularly when it's free for the customers. They're coming in, they're getting a lovely free portrait. But from John Lewis's point of view, they're getting people into store, staying there, shopping, enjoying the experience, getting a lovely impression of John Lewis as well. It sticks in their mind that this is a place where you get lovely free things and they look after you. And they make my dog welcome, which as a dog owner, you often don't always get that in everywhere you visit. So it was really popular in the summer. So they invited me back for another 8 dates at Christmas across 8 different stores over the Christmas period. So yeah, it was just kind of being a bit brazen about it and just putting myself out there, sending pitch emails, following up over and over, just making the most of a contact once I had it, I guess.
I was going to say, because there was a bit there where you said, yeah, I got talking to the events person at my local John Lewis, and I thought, you don't just get talking to an events person.
That's a longer story, if you want.
But it goes to show the dedication of like knocking on the door and then keeping in touch repeatedly, by the sounds of it.
So that came off the back of me being part of a local art group. So when I first sort of went freelance, I wanted to try and find communities locally. I thought as an artist, I'll join an art group, but it was more kind of fine artists, people doing paintings, sculptures, etc. But I do a little bit of painting, and I created some paintings, and they were doing something called Open for Art, where they ask local venues in the Reading area where I'm based. The charity I'm speaking about that had the art group was called Jelly as well. And so they have what they called associate artists that are affiliated with Jelly. And then they put on this Open for Art where they ask local cafes, shops, restaurants to exhibit art over the course of a few weeks in the summer. And one of those venues was the John Lewis Cafe. And I got allocated to the John Lewis Cafe. So me and a friend who's a painter as well went to exhibit our work and set it and hang it in the cafe. And we got chatting to the lady there who was the events coordinator who was helping organise our work being exhibited. I said, well, actually, I also do live portraits. Is that something you'd be interested in? And so she said she would. And so I had her email off the back of organising the sort of painting exhibition. And that was the one contact I had. And I just followed it up for like 9 months. And finally it led to me doing live portraits in the store.
Wow. But, okay, 9 months is a long time.
Yeah.
How do you cope with, I mean, maybe it wasn't rejection. Maybe it was, not right now. But maybe it was an open door. I don't know. But it's just that for many people, that sense of reaching out, staying in touch, persevering, like that can be tricky. How have you dealt with it?
Well, that was something else I tried for properly, about a year and a half ago, I started something called the 100 Rejections Challenge, which I'd heard about through Liz Mosley and Katie Chappell. I think they did a podcast on it. They've written their own blogs on it. And I think lots of people are doing it, but I heard about it through them. And basically it's the idea that you gamify rejection. You try and get as many rejections as you can, as opposed to acceptance yeses. But actually, in the process of putting yourself out there, outside of your comfort zone and trying lots of new things, you actually get loads of amazing opportunities. And as a result, it's led to so many brilliant things that I've tried in the last year or two. So that was kind of part of it. That was just kind of changing my mindset to think, I'm just going to try it anyway and see what happens. I think previously, if someone didn't reply or said no at first, I'd leave it at that and wouldn't follow it up. Whereas nowadays, I try and persist with following up. Doesn't always work. I've had other people that were super keen at the beginning and then disappeared and ghosted me. But then other times they're sort of sound keen, and then you just keep chipping away and keep checking in with them. And eventually it does lead to things. You just never know.
Liz was on the podcast, episode 300, when we did it live, and it was a couple of years ago, but she talks about that challenge. And I love now that it's like reverberating around the creative community and seeing the benefits as well. How cool is that? Do you then have a system for making those cold outreach and staying on top of?
Yeah, I have a spreadsheet. I have a Google Sheet thing. I just have a list of all the people I'm pitching to, categorize them. One of them was you. Like it can include, it's not just clients, it's like press and getting onto podcasts. I've been on the local radio recently as well, just before Christmas. It can be anything. So I do love a spreadsheet. For someone that's creative, I actually get quite geeky about spreadsheets. From my years working in the retail industry and actually doing quite a technical job, I'm pretty good at Excel and spreadsheet stuff. So I can make it look quite fancy. I can put all the filters and colours and stuff into it and formulas if I want to. So yeah, I don't mind drilling down into that detail. It's not a sort of perfectly slick spreadsheet. It's a little bit messy, but it does the job. And when I pitch to something, I'll have it on the spreadsheet, and then I'll check in whether I've followed up. So it's kind of everything's in one place really, and then I filter it by the type of thing I'm pitching for. And then I have a few templates that I use that I tweak depending on what I'm pitching for. So to make them personal. So and I do my research. I don't just kind of send out random pitches. I try, if I want to be on your podcast, for example, I listen to the podcast, I listen to your guests, I make notes on what you talked about and why I thought I would be a good fit, because your time is limited as much as anyone's. So I don't want to make it easy for you if you want to decide to have me on your podcast. And the same applies to working with a client. You've got to make it easy for them to want to work with you and give them the information they'll need to make that decision. Now,
it's one thing to pitch to other events, other companies who do events, since you're doing live event illustration. But it's another to then think, I know, I'll put on my own events. But that's what you did, right?
Yeah. So alongside the live illustration work and also selling products, I've been teaching watercolour workshops, illustration workshops at various venues local to me, sometimes in London. And I really enjoy it. So I became friends with a calligrapher called Jodie Rose Calligraphy, and she came to one of my workshops at one event I did, and we got chatting, became friendly, and I sort of pitched to her, like, why don't we try and do a joint event combining watercolour and calligraphy? Because she teaches a lot of calligraphy workshops. She does really well from that. She also does live events, doing calligraphy at live events. So there's quite a lot of overlap in what we do. And we decided, let's do it. So this time last year, we sort of finalised the idea, started researching venues, our budget, what it would look like. It took a long time to kind of bring all the elements together and research everything, but we've now got a lovely venue called the Garden Gallery, which is behind the Museum of Farnham in Surrey. And it's a full-day retreat. You'd get a watercolour workshop and a calligraphy workshop. So you do one or the other in the morning, and then you swap in the afternoon. Then we also have a breathwork practitioner who's going to open the retreat and get everyone grounded and relaxed at the beginning of the day. Everyone gets a personalised calligraphy, personalised art box with everything they need for every workshop. And then we have lovely food from local suppliers like Graysboard, delicious food, and local cookies from the cookies were from the venue where Jodie and I met. So that was quite a nice full circle as well. So we worked with as many local suppliers as we could. We hosted our first one in autumn last year, and we've got the next one in spring on the 6th of April. The one last year was sold out. It was amazing. It all came together and we got some fantastic reviews and feedback from people. So it was fantastic. We learned an awful lot in the process. It wasn't straightforward. I wouldn't say it's made us loads of money, but it's been an amazing experience to do. And I've loved working with Jodie throughout the process.
I was going to say, it's so impressive. I love the fact that you're collaborating on it, but also there's the amount of work involved in even just getting a few people around a table in a pub is a lot.
Yeah.
So to put on that kind of thing in such beautiful detail as well, and I guess almost like the financial risk to it as well, not knowing how that's going to work out. Like what were your biggest takeaway learnings from that experience?
I think, doing it with someone else is the key. I think if I'd been trying to do the entire thing on my own, I would have really struggled alongside. Because as I said, we're probably not paying ourselves the amount of hours we put into it at all. We make a small profit off the back of the fact that we cover our costs, and then we get some profit on the top of that. But it's an awful lot of work on your own. So I think having someone to do it with you. Saying that, we also had Jodie's mum helping us on the day, because she helped us just to like serving teas and coffees and helping tidy up and helping us set up and pack down. Having that extra set of hands was amazing, and she was brilliant as well. So I think it's actually like bring in people as much as you can to help, people you trust, and people that was the other thing. Jodie and I had different skills. Like it's worked quite well where one of us is naturally better at one thing and the other is better at another. So I, for example, love doing email marketing. So I've been the one sending out all the emails and the updates to the attendees. Jodie's a lot more active on Instagram. So she was doing lots of lovely reels of her doing calligraphy writing. And she's been organising our Facebook and Instagram ads, for example. And then sort of between us, we're researching the suppliers and contacting suppliers. So like you'll do the caterers, I'll do the venue, etc. So it's about dividing and conquering and delegating and don't try and do it all on your own, basically. That's what the main thing I've learned.
The other thing you need, of course, is an audience of people who know you and want to buy tickets, I guess. So do you have quite a presence online that you've built up over the past few years?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say either of us are huge on social media, but we do have established audiences for people that attend our workshops. We have set up our own Instagram account for the Flow and Flourish Retreat, which is what it's called. But it's interesting the places people heard about it. I did a podcast around this time last year about creativity with a lady called Irene who runs a company called Makings and Musings. And someone heard that podcast and heard me talking about the retreat and booked off the back of that. So I was like, that was unexpected. I didn't realise, you never know who's listening or who's watching. And then I think I did an event in a plant shop in Reading the year before last, where I was doing portraits of people holding their plants that they just bought. It was like to launch the 1-year anniversary of the shop opening. And the owner, Jackie, booked me to do live portraits on the day. And a lady who was there having her live portrait done signed up to my mailing list and then came to the retreat the following year. And I've been doing markets and so I wouldn't say it's just an online presence that makes a difference. I would say putting yourself out there in real life in different ways and marketing yourself in lots of different ways really is the key. And email marketing, I'd say, like we built up a wait list, which I would always recommend for any event. Get people on your mailing list and a wait list because it's more exclusive. They're the first people to hear about the event. They get exclusive access to it early. We offer discounts to them if they're on the wait list, etc. So that was key as well, I think. So it's a combination of things.
So it sounds like you're really on top of your email marketing then.
I try to be. The fact I have one, I think, is a lot more than a lot of people. So many people are so scared of it. I mean, I was looking back at the one I did when I really first started just doing cards, and I was like, goodness me, it was terrible. It was a pretty rubbish little email, but I was just sending it to like a handful of friends and family probably right at the beginning. But as I've gone along, I've learned loads and got better and better. I've done a few courses on email marketing to understand how it works and how to collect emails and get sort of people to sign up. I wouldn't say I have a gigantic mailing list. I don't do a lot of online marketing for it. I tend to get people signing up when I'm at live events usually. And I send, on average, 1 email a month. So I don't send it that often. But then for the retreat, I've sent more because it's been a specific audience that want to hear from me about that particular thing because they're on the wait list. So, I keep improving. So, the fact that I'm doing it and I'm fairly consistent with it, I think, is the main thing.
So what do you put in that monthly one?
It's usually what I've been up to, what events I have coming up. So it's like the first place people can hear about my upcoming events. I also sort of recommend my favorite like exhibitions or books or podcasts I've been listening to or other small businesses. So like I've been setting my goals for 2025 and I've recommended a couple of small businesses I've worked with, which I think you've both had as guests. So it's Hannah Eisted with High Communications for her Best 90 Days Ever, which has been great for helping me set goals for marketing. And then Lucy Werner, who does her PR Hype Yourself community on Substack. She's done a workshop on setting goals for PR goals for the year. So I kind of link to those in my latest newsletter, for example. And it's talking about the retreat, if that's coming up. It's talking about how to book me for a wedding, how to book me for a live event, if you're wanting to work with me as a client. And sometimes I take commissions for pet portraits or people portraits, etc. I think the usual rule I have for a newsletter is make 3 main points. Try to keep it fairly succinct and lots of nice pictures. I try and make them always nice and colourful as well, with lots of photos.
Amazing. So it sounds like you've taken, particularly maybe the last year or two, your marketing very I was going to say seriously, but it sounds fun. But seriously, you've taken it seriously.
Exactly. Yeah, that's probably true.
Intentional.
Actually, it's become fun for the first time in a while. I'd say signing up to Hannah's Best 90 Days in the last year has really helped. That's got a lovely community of really supportive people. I think finding some cheerleaders and like working with people like Jodie, where we can share ideas and cheer each other on, really helps as well. Like, I think the thing with marketing is, what I've mainly tried this year is loads of different things. I think previously I was fairly focused on social media, and that's become much harder to make an impact on. So I'm just always trying something new. I get really geeky about things like PR and doing what I've been in a couple of wedding magazines in the last year that I pitched to. I've been on the radio a couple of times. I've been on some podcasts. So that's kind of my focus this year, I think, is what PR type stuff can I get? Because I don't know if PR leads to loads of new business necessarily, but it's a lot more fun than just endlessly posting on social media. And I think social media is useful and necessary as a kind of shop window, like this is what I do, this is who I am, this is how to work with me, keeping people informed about what you're up to. But it really, for me, isn't my main focus. I try and do as many different things as I can. And actually, I'd say my newsletters are probably my favourite type of marketing rather than social media stuff.
How would you say you divide up your time? Is a lot of focus on marketing? And I'm guessing that, it's not like you have a live event every day, like somebody sitting down to do a bit of work every day. So
it depends. So it really is peaks and troughs and depending on the time of year. This time of year is much, much quieter. I don't have live events in January particularly, but I've been using January to plan and prepare for the rest of the year and sort of pitch to work with different clients and plan things in for the sort of late spring, and through the summer is when I have lots of weddings usually. And then Christmas this last year was very busy for live events as well. So it will depend on the time of year. So I actually have a part-time job 2 days a week as well. I work for the Association of Illustrators, working on the World Illustration Awards. But that's actually a marketing role. So I think through that, I've learned lots about marketing as well, because I do their social media, their newsletters, their blog posts. So that's made me much more comfortable with that side of the business, of running a business as well, or promoting something. So usually when it's busy, I'll have around 2 events a week, often on weekends. So that kind of means I shift my days in the week as to what I'm doing. So then I'll have 1 or 2 days a week I'm catching up on admin and planning my marketing, or having meetings or going to networking events. Networking is another thing I've done in the last year that I hadn't done previously, and that's also helped my confidence in marketing, I think, as well. So it's a bit of a juggle. It's not always an easy 9 to 5 routine. I have a studio that I can come to a couple of times a week, which helps because it's just mine and it's completely quiet and I don't get any distractions. So that helps me get on with things and catch up on what I need to do and have meetings like this. So I'd sort of balance my week like that, really. A couple of events, a couple of admin days, and then my part-time job as well, usually.
It's interesting that so the job must give you a little bit of security, but it's also in the field that you're working in.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty incredible how relevant it is. In the illustration industry, it's given me lots of experience of marketing, and it's so inspiring as well, like seeing what other illustrators do, like when they're applying for the awards, and then when they're entering the awards with all their beautiful work, and then when we start celebrating the people that are longlisted and shortlisted, and then the winners. I got nominated for an award in November and was highly commended for the Quirky Weddings Award, it's called. So it was the most unique finishing touch was my category. And I was thinking, well, I'm always telling illustrators in my day job to promote themselves and make the most of the fact they've got an award or they've been shortlisted. I need to do the same. So I pitched to my local press and I pitched to my local radio to talk about it. And that's how I got onto my local radio, was putting together a press release about it. they invited me on to talk about live illustration. And I also did a live portrait of the host of the show whilst I was on air, which was really fun. And then she invited Jodie to come on the show a few weeks later. So she was talking about calligraphy and also about the retreat again. So yeah, I'm sort of trying to put myself in those illustrators' shoes and think, what do I tell them to do and what should I be, doing?
You've not been secretly painting me and you the whole time, have you?
No.
Just slightly out of shot.
No.
Suddenly
I do struggle
thinking I should have done my hair better.
No, everyone in my portraits always looks lovely, so don't worry. It's always, I always make everyone smile. Everyone's got happy faces. It's honestly, people are always like, oh, take away my chins or make me look slim. And I was like, people are beautiful however they come. And I like drawing real people. Like obviously doing a fashion degree, I learned how to draw fashion models, which are skinny and elongated. But that's the thing I like about drawing real people at weddings and live events is celebrating everyone in any shape or size they come in and making them feel beautiful, which I think they always do, which is lovely.
Yeah. But now you mentioned elongated fashion models and you're looking at me, you're thinking, yeah, actually it's come full circle. That's nice. Back with Helen's story in a moment. But I just want to remind you that the Being Freelance community has grown off the back of starting this podcast, and it would be brilliant to see you in there. I can't tell you how much it makes a difference being surrounded by other people who get what it's like to do what you do, to have a place that's private where you can chat about your wins, ask questions, refer work, have a laugh, frankly, as well, to show off your work, to learn from others. We do live podcasts, we do co-working. It's all in there, and all you've got to do is go to beingfreelance.com, click on community, and before you know it, you'll be in there too. So come find us. Go to beingfreelance.com, click community, and I look forward to seeing you in there. Right now, let's get back to Helen's story. One thing I did want to ask you about, Helen, is, and I guess this falls into the marketing thing, is the video on your your website is great anyway. Of course, there'll be a link at beingfreelance.com. But right there at the top is this beautiful video that really captures, it's filmed at a wedding. Did you commission that?
So that was a collaboration with someone called Chris Milbourne, who has a company called Heart-Shaped Films. And I met him at a wedding fair I did about a year and a half ago. He was literally just starting out in his business, mainly wanting to become a wedding videographer. But he also he works with corporate clients and local businesses. And he also, has now started doing promotional videos for small businesses. So in exchange for me giving him some business mentorship advice, so we had about 3 mentorship sessions where I was giving him advice on how to improve his website, how to market himself, set up his mailing list, be more present on social media. So I've been giving him lots of advice on that. In exchange for that, he offered to do a video of me at work at a wedding. So I checked with the couple, they were happy for him to be there, which they were, which is amazing. So he came along for a few hours whilst I was working, captured me working and chatting to the guests and drawing them and painting them. And then he put it together in this incredible, beautifully edited video. But yeah, he did an amazing job. And now I've got it as a brilliant, beautiful video on my website and that I can use for social media as well.
I mean, it's so good. You got to go take a look because it obviously it shows how joyous my wedding could be if you were there doing what you do. So it shows the actual work that you do, but it does also give a sense of your personality, even though you're not even speaking on it. I think it's great.
Okay. That's good to know. I haven't actually had sort of direct feedback about it. So, I love the video, obviously, and I'm really amazed with it. And I think Chris has done an incredible job. But yeah, it's lovely to hear it. It gives that impression. That's really nice.
So obviously you've focused, like your niche is live events, I guess even within that, wedding and dogs by the sounds of it. But equally, it feels like there's so many things that you could be doing as an illustrator. You even mentioned like the product side of it and things like that early on. So I'm wondering, like, how do you keep focused when there's so much opportunity for what you could do?
So this was part of the reason that I pivoted the business a couple of years ago. When I started out, I wanted to try and do a bit of everything. I wanted to try editorial, publishing. I was interested in surface pattern design, so designing prints for fabric and products, or having my designs licensed by different companies, or like working in advertising. There were so many different avenues I could have gone down. And I was like, actually, I just need to pick 2 or 3 things I like. It's also, I think in any business, it's that thing where you have to step back and go, actually, where is the majority of my revenue coming from? I might enjoy that slightly niche thing that I've been doing, but is it actually making me very much money? And if it isn't, why am I spending so much time on it when I could be focusing on something I also enjoy, but is much more profitable and makes me a proper living, and I can actually, support myself as an illustrator. So that was for me the thing where I realized doing live events, because it's quite a high pressure thing, it's very unique, it's very skilled, it does pay very well. You have to find far less clients to do that type of work than you would you'd have to find, a few thousand individual people buying cards very frequently in order to make a reasonable living from selling cards on their own. So once I kind of did that basic maths, I guess, I was like, okay, I need to, plus I've been having like a part-time job alongside this for the last couple of years. And with that, you need to be economical with your time and understand like, okay, I have these 3 to 4 extra days a week. I can work for myself. What am I going to do in those days that's going to maximize my time? And live events has been the most logical thing to do for me anyway. Plus, I really love it. So yeah, it's a case of stepping back a little bit and looking at all the different things you're wanting to do or have been trying and what's working, what's not, and just kind of pick 2 or 3 to focus on.
Now, Helen, I always do this thing where I ask for 3 facts about yourself to make 2 true, 1 a lie, and let me figure out the lie. What do you have for me? Okay.
I once performed as a dinosaur at the Royal Festival Hall. I once had a job inspecting giant teddy bears, and I won a fruit and vegetable sculpting competition.
So the Royal Festival Hall, I mean, that's a beautiful venue. Lots of classical music concerts are held there in London. You were a dinosaur.
Okay, it sounds like me as I was an individual dinosaur. It was when I was in primary school.
Aww.
I was in a school choir, and we as the choir were the dinosaur. So it's a musical called Brilliant the Dinosaur. And I'm not entirely sure how my school teacher did this. I didn't go to a fancy school, but she managed to get our entire school choir being the dinosaur in this musical. So our school uniform was green. So we all turned our uniform jumpers inside out. So they were fluffy green jumpers. We all lined up in sets of 2, and we all held onto a stick in our sets of 2 that was attached to a big green rope that created the shape of a diplodocus. And we then paraded down the stairs at the side of the stage onto the stage as this diplodocus singing Brilliant the Dinosaur, the musical. The one lyric I remember for one of the songs that we did was, you say that we can't spell, but we can spell Landfair, Thwithgyn, Gargo, Gareth, Windjok, Will, Landacilio, Go, Go, Goch. Which I probably butchered massively, but I presume you know that's the Welsh town with the super long name.
That took a deviation towards the end. That's a super cute lot of detail in there if you have just made that up. Next, you used to have a job inspecting giant teddy bears.
Yeah. So, as I said, I used to work for retailers looking at products being good quality. And I worked for a retailer that was famous for their teddy bears. And so I would often have to go to the warehouse and inspect stock before it went to the big department store. And one year they decided to get some giant teddy bears made, dressed up in sort of outfits that were related to the department store. And I was the one that had to go to the warehouse, open up this huge box and inspect this teddy bear that was taller than me. It was over 6 foot tall. And check it was...
When one is inspecting a giant teddy bear, what does one look for? Like, do you leap at it, give it a giant cuddle, hope the seams don't burst as you sort of like, what's the protocol?
It's not as exciting as that. I mean, you kind of want to check it's not going to fall over and squash a child or something. So I was just making sure it was stable when it was standing up. I was making sure that the stitching, it was wearing clothes, so I had to make all the stitching, make sure the stitching was correct. I mean, it wasn't a toy, it was a display item, but...
Right. Finally, you won a fruit and veg sculpting competition, did you say?
Yeah.
Weird thing about this, we had Angela Lyons on at the end of last year, and she was sculpting fruit and veg as well. What is going on? So what was this?
So I went to visit some friends who lived in a little village near Hull, and they had the local village fetes happening that weekend. So they were like, why don't we all enter something into one of the categories at the village fete? And I was like, well, I think I'm going to try the fruit and vegetable sculpting competition at village fetes. I always find them really fun. So I decided to make an owl out of a pineapple and a melon and some carrots. And I won first prize.
Was the head of the pineapple, like the big green bit, was that used, or did you have to carve?
So that actually I cut off, split in half, and it was the wings at the side. So the pineapple was the body, the wings were the fluffy bit and the spiky bit, and then the head was carved into a melon. And he had glacé eyes, glacé cherry eyes.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
And the beak was a little bit of carrot, and the toes were carrots as well.
Oh my gosh, Helen, you are a brilliant liar, because I cannot conceive that one of these is not true. I don't know, maybe you've just spent so long on your backstory, because you instantly you instantly knew that the green bit was the wings. Like, you'd really thought about the structure. Maybe you're just an excellent liar. Oh my God, the dinosaur felt true. That felt cute, although I don't understand where the long Welsh place name would come in. But the fact that you said the long Welsh place name, which has no place in that story, suggests that it did happen. But why wouldn't you have been inspecting? That makes me feel like the giant teddy bears isn't true. But as somebody who worked in retail for years, that's exactly the kind of thing I imagine you would do. I'm at a loss. Okay, simply because I really feel the joy in the dinosaur and the fruity owl. Even though it feels like the most obvious and true, I'm going to say, no, come on. Am I going to say the teddy bear isn't true? Yeah, no, I am. The teddy bear is the lie.
No, the teddy bear's true.
It's the dinosaur, isn't it?
No, I was a dinosaur.
Oh my God.
The Dinosaur musical when I was a kid. And that's how I know how to say that crazy word, is because of that song.
I can't believe the owl is the lie.
Yeah. I did my research. I looked up sculpting competitions and saw someone that made an owl out of a pineapple and a melon.
All right. Well played. That was an excellent round of that game. Now, Helen, if you could tell your younger self one thing about being freelance, what would that be?
Well, I think being freelance at the age I am now is better than it would have been if I'd done it straight out of university. I think I've got way more confidence now to be a freelancer. And although I would have loved to have been an illustrator when I started out, I don't think I would have made it the same as I am now. I think all the life experience I've had and all the different random jobs I've had have led up to this point and made me ready to be a freelancer now. Yeah, my younger self was a bit sad and a bit despondent that I wasn't being creative enough. But I would tell them, you just got to hang in there. It will get better, and you'll get to a point where you're illustrating dogs and being paid for it.
You did mention in your retail career how important relationships were, and it sounds like they're very important now as well. I mean, we hear it again and again, you know, the connections that you make are important. But how do you feel that what makes those relationships good? How do you deal with it?
I guess it's being yourself and being open to new experiences, new conversations, remembering that most people would want a connection and most people are nice as well. I think I had this idea that when you reach out to a client you'd want to work with, they can be super scary, like someone like a publisher or an editorial art director. And most of the time, people are so lovely, and love to hear from you. I'm always amazed at how excited people are to hear from me in those when I reach out to them. And yeah, I think that's the thing is don't assume that people are super scary or like on this sort of massive pedestal above you. Like, we're all human beings and we all need and want connection. I think it's just be personal, you know, make them feel like you actually care about them, not just about yourself and what you can get out of it. And it's normally a good experience if you go about it that way.
Helen, this has been brilliant. Thank you so much. Go to beingfreelance.com, follow the links through, go find Helen wherever she is online. But for now, Helen, thank you so much and all the best being freelance.
Thank you.
How good is Helen? Played a blind one, the truth and lies. So much good stuff in there. Helen, thank you. She mentioned Liz and Hannah. Both of them have been on the podcast as guests before, so check out their episodes. But also Hannah did a live Q&A for us in the community. We also did her book in our book club. So if you fancy watching the live Q&A that Hannah did, it was excellent. That's available in the Being Freelance community. If you're already in there, go find it in the live Q&A section. If you're not, come join us. beingfreelance.com, click on community. All right, I'm back with another one of these very soon, a couple of weeks from now. In the meantime, you have a great week being freelance.